Hi everyone, in today's video I'm going to talk about the problems students have when they are trying to formulate a research problem in quantitative research versus qualitative research, and what are the things that students should be mindful of. Now, when you are formulating a research problem, it may seem that it's a very simple and easy task because you may get an idea of a research problem from either some book you have read or some paper that you have read, or you have talked to your friends, or you are from the industry, or you have your own personal experience or thoughts about a certain problem and you want to investigate. So that's fine, but there is a way to go about it, and we call it the scientific way. And you have to follow a methodical procedure to formulate a research problem in quantitative research versus qualitative research. Although that problem may seem very simple in your head, it may seem very clear in your head. So let's talk about first quantitative research. So when you are trying to formulate a problem in a quantitative research, it is more clear and direct. So you know the terms of measurement. So it could be a correlational research or a causation research where you are trying to investigate if, let's say for example, that an increase in unemployability in society has led to an increase of alcoholism in young adults, or an increase in unemployment has led to an increase of crimes in society. So there's a correlation research that you are trying to investigate. That's how clear, direct, and simple, straightforward of formulating a research problem in quantitative research. So you could be also investigating a causation problem. So where you are trying to investigate if, let's say, that mixing a certain fertilizer is causing low yield crops. All right, so using a certain fertilizer is leading to low yield in crops. All right, or is a certain vaccination leading to heart diseases? Is that causing heart disease or heart problems? So there are direct problems, so you can talk about the problem in very direct terms, simple terms. You can mention that clearly, although it takes time to formulate such a problem, but it is more clear and direct and specific. With qualitative research, however, the problem is that it is has to be a bit open and flexible at the very beginning. You cannot come with a very straight idea and try to investigate in a qualitative research. I'll give you an example. So a student wanted to investigate what does it mean to have a family member with autism in the house. So when the student mentioned this to the supervisor said, "What do you mean by the words? What does it mean by?" So the candidate, of course, was adamant and said that, what does it mean by means what does it mean by? It's very clear. So it was very clear in the candidate's head, but the supervisor said it's not going to be very clear when you are trying to explain it to the respondent. So if you try to explain it to the respondent, you will find it to be a struggle. So he gave an example. He said, let's take a random person and ask them this question. And when the candidate asked them, what does it mean by having a person with a family member with autism in the house, the other person said, what do you mean by what does it mean by? Tell me clearly, what do you mean? What does it mean by? What should I be talking about? There are so many things I can talk about. So then this candidate, the candidate who was doing the PhD or the research, was confused because he or she could not explain the simple words, what does it mean by? So here an example is that when you talk about something like this, you have to come with a framework. That is why what qualitative research often is guided by a framework of study. That means you have very clear topics that you want to investigate in a certain phenomenon. So when you come into the research, you come with a very open head, come open mind, and you don't come with a very specific set of ideas that this is what I want to investigate, because you may get some data from the respondents and initial data from the respondents that will guide your research. So one way the supervisor handled this problem was the supervisor told the candidate to read some literature and then to carry out some mock interviews, some informal interviews with a couple of families who had family members with autism. And from that, the candidate was able to list some of the issues that the families face or go through when they have a family member with autism. That could be financial issues, it could be social issues where they are facing social isolation or high cost of treatment, or unable to put this person through an education school, or unable for this person or the family to travel anywhere. So there are so many issues that one can talk about when you're talking about having a family member with high autism in the house. So unless you are guided by a particular framework as to what is it that you want to talk about, what is it that you want to investigate, do you want to investigate the social aspect, the financial aspect, the economic aspect? So these are all these aspects that you can be guided by. So when you come with a very clear framework that you want to investigate maybe only the financial aspect or the social aspect, then the respondents know what is it that you want to talk about. They will be guided by that framework, they will be guided by your questions, and they will answer what you want to know. Because often what happens is that if you don't have a framework, you may start with a certain problem and then collect the data and realize that you have collected data on some other problem. So all that data that you collect may be waste, or it will confuse you further. So what is a good idea with qualitative research to formulate a problem is to gather some initial data, develop a framework, and then guide your research from that framework, guide your research problem through that framework, and investigate the research problem completely using that framework. There is always this advantage that initially that because you have an open mind, you are flexible, you can pick the one that is the most relevant, or the one that will be widely read in your area. But the disadvantage is that if you do not form a framework, then you are trying to investigate everything of that problem and not getting a definitive answer in any area. So if you try to investigate financial, social, economic, all aspects, then you will not be able to thoroughly understand any aspect properly. So because you are one person doing a research, unless you have a research team who is trying to investigate different aspects, then it works. But if you are one researcher who is trying to investigate, remember that people will ask you questions about every aspect that you investigate. So when you are guided by a framework, then people who are reading your research also know that you are only investigating in a certain aspect of a problem. You don't know everything about that problem, but you know that one area of that problem very well, and you can answer those questions. That is why it's advantageous to use a framework. In quantitative research, because we are guided by a very specific problem, people know from the very beginning what is the problem that you are trying to investigate. You're trying to investigate a correlational relationship or a causation relationship, and you've identified some independent variables, some dependent variables, some extraneous variables, and you've controlled for those variables, and you've found that out. So of course there the sample becomes very important, the sample size becomes very important, the strength of the relationship becomes important, the statistics become very important. So these are different problems that often students have. So it is always a good idea for you to base your research problem on some available literature or some interview, and make it very clear what is it that you want to investigate. You should be very clear about each and every word that you use in formulating your research problem. In your head, you should be very clear as to how you are guided, what is the scope of your research, is it manageable, is it a SMART objective, so specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time managed. So you should be very clear about that research problem, and it should be based on certain literature, some groundwork, some basis that you have come up with that problem. So once you have defined the boundaries of that research problem, you will be guided better, and you will be able to investigate it better, and then find out everything that you require to know. You will have a good knowledge about that aspect of the problem, and that is the way you become an expert in that area. So I hope this video was useful for you guys. I will come up with a new video. I try to come up with videos every week. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I will see you soon. Bye for now.